in events that we did together. And that's what you need to do. You need to experiment. Job security doesn't come from having one thing locked down. It's when other people are scared to play with Zoom, you play with Zoom.
Exactly. And it makes you more knowledgeable, and you're far ahead of the crowd, because people will seek out people that know how to do stuff like that, and you're going to get the job offer before somebody else. So that stays in the lines, like they tell us to.
Yeah. But also, Zoom has very good trainings. They have like 10 different links. You can.
Yes, they do. It takes a lot of time to learn all those things, because there are so many platforms and there's so much out there to offer. But at the same time, the more you learn, the more apt you are, and a lot of it is the same. I'm sure you agree, Kareen, that it's like you learn Zoom, and okay, it might be tweaked a little bit for WebEx or other platforms, but it's kind of the same. So
precisely.
Absolutely.
You must have read my book, Christine, the copy of the book that you have.
I do. I read it cover to cover. I highly recommend it. Kareen, waking up from my parents' American Dream. Love this book. It's very quick. It's very easy to read, and it's like, wow. And the stories that Kareen is sharing is like, oh, I can identify with that. Definitely worth your time to read, because it doesn't take long, and yet there's so many little tidbits within it that you can totally identify your life and your situations with what she's saying. So
yes, for sure. Here's what I recommend. While we are still saying hello, get yourself some water, get comfortable. That way you don't have to get up in the middle of the presentation to move around. So get that now if you don't have it. Also pen and paper, because I will be sharing a lot of things that you can do right now while we are in the presentation. You can try out a couple of things yourself and see how that works. So I'm a fan of giving you things that you can try today, not something you learn about, and then after the presentation, you're like, that was great, but how do I use it?
Yes.
What am I going to do with it?
Yes. And you'll see that Kareen has posted a lot on LinkedIn to demonstrate to you how easy it can be. It doesn't have to be long and intense. It could be a quick little blurb, and it's getting your name out there. And I'm sure that's what everyone is looking for. How do I make myself more marketable? Just from the LinkedIn feedback from everyone that I do follow and I'm connected to, clients or fellow counselors or whatever, people are landing in COVID-19, and people are getting new jobs and job opportunities during this pandemic. But as we've always said, it has not changed. The unemployment number is a lot higher than it used to be. However, the people that are landing from networking, from who they know and who is vouching for them, just like it always has been, but it's even more so today. So if your competition is higher, applying on job boards for a job is not the way to go. You definitely want to spend more time on LinkedIn and other platforms such as that, where people are that make those hiring decisions. That's where you're going to go. And that's what Kareen's going to talk about today, is how to make yourself more in your face, to pop more and to be more active, so that people are engaging with you and you can become that subject matter expert very easily. So,
yes, indeed. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thanks to Christine. I love collaborating with you and the county and other people around the county to do these workshops for people, because there's a lot of things that I share. It's because I wish at one point I had the opportunity to learn those things also. That would have saved me a lot of heartache, a lot of embarrassment sometimes. But when somebody can clue you in with their experience, it's something that's very valuable. So I'm very happy to share that with you. So this workshop is to teach you how to use LinkedIn to stand above the competition. And when you have 30 million people as competition, either for your business or for your career, what does that mean for yourself? So that's what we are going to talk about today. Let's see, let me close that.
To keep everything, because Zoom or any other online platform is very sensitive to sounds. So what I did is I muted everyone on entry. And if you have a question, please type it into the chat box and I will relay that to Kareen as she's going through her slides. And that way we're not talking above one another and waiting for someone to stop and that kind of thing. Feel free to take notes because there's a lot of information that Kareen's going to share with you and it's definitely worthwhile. This session is being recorded, so you will see it again. If you don't want yourself on the recording, you know, kind of hide that video or mute yourself.
Yeah.
It will be posted and I will give you the link to the Dropbox so you can see the recording, you can see the chat box, and you can see the slides for your download in the future if you so wish. If someone is missing out on this presentation, they can view it in the future as well. So I will hand it over to you. Thank you so much, Kareen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone. And yes, somebody had asked the question, will the slides be shared? Yes, I will make the share available. At the end, I'm going to share a link where you can get in touch with me. And once you do that, I'll be able to share the link with you as well. So the reason why we're here today is to help you get more eyeballs on your profile on LinkedIn. Is that something that you think would be helpful for you? Raise your hand. Okay. The other thing too we want to make sure we do is to maximize your time. A lot of times people complain about social media because they start using social media and next thing they know it's 4 hours later and they're like, oh my God, where did my time go? And they feel like it was a waste of time without really anything to show for it. So there's a way to maximize your time so that you can get what you need out of the engagement that you are performing on LinkedIn. And you also want to make sure that people keep coming back to your profile for more. There's a way to do it, like Christine said earlier, you want to be in people's face, but in a way that's going to make them want to come back for more. You don't want to necessarily be spammy and disagreeable and all those things. So we want to make sure all of those things are there for you. So why should you listen to me? And thank you, Mark. Welcome. Welcome to the presentation. Okay, so I will tell you a little bit about me. Sometimes people only think about the top line of what they're all about. When you're on LinkedIn, chances are you're only thinking about presenting yourself as your resume because it is a professional platform and we're told anything personal, keep it on Facebook. Anything professional, keep it strictly professional, strictly on your resume on LinkedIn. Well, guess what? Are you not a full human being? Do you not have friends? Do you not have favorite foods that you like to eat? Do you not have places that you like to go? Everybody knows about the know, like, and trust factor, meaning that people are more likely to do business with you, to hire you, to even be your friend if they like you, if they know you, and if they trust you. So if all you are is a resume, how can they get to know the person? How will your story be able to tell? How will your resume be able to tell a story if what you write is exactly the same thing that everybody else writes? If the opinions you put out there is simply a copy or a repost of what other people do. So for myself, I decided, actually in the last couple of weeks, I decided to put together the things that are important to me in my life. And at the center of that is myself. I need to take care of my own needs, and you also need to take care of your own needs. Just like when you're on a plane, and I've been on plenty of those for work, you have to put on your own mask first before you help your passenger. Because in the middle of helping, or rather your fellow passenger, in the middle of putting an oxygen mask on someone, if you pass out, how can you help them? Now there are two people who are in trouble, and the authorities or the first responders now have twice as many problems to deal with. So there's nothing wrong with making sure that you prioritize your own needs first as you look at what's going on LinkedIn and how you get that to work for yourself and for your business. Now, what else matters to you? Are there things in your community that matters to you? One of the pictures here is of my cat. My cat matters to me. I never went on business trips that are too long because I wanted to be home with my pets, with my husband, with my friends and family. Those things matter to me. So once in a while, I may say something funny on LinkedIn about that. What else matters to you? Are there organizations, maybe people who give out scholarships, people who do retreats for people with cancer? Like, what else do you have going on in your life that makes you an interesting person? What else makes you want to get out of bed every day? All those things matter. So for myself, the way I would categorize the things that matter to me are in career advancement, in my consulting and coaching business. 6.5 years ago, I started my company, DevOps Advisors, which you see there on the screen. And I started out doing a lot of technical consulting work. However, I came to find out sometimes 75% of the time, it's not even a technical problem that I am fixing. You know what I'm fixing? A people problem. A people problem. So if you think your skill set is the only thing that matters, it is not. This is why you're able to see people in certain companies. They have these relationships. They don't have much in the way of skills, but for some reason they get to hang on to the job forever and a day. Has any of you ever seen that?
Absolutely. Kareen, could you show your slides in full screen so that our viewers at home can see them better?
Let's see. I don't think I was able to. Can you?
If you look in the little music stand at the bottom, we'll show the, there we go. And then.
Thank you so much. Okay, great. Yes, because I was trying to click on that before and I wasn't.
Okay.
There was some latency.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So what else matters to me? My husband matters to me. And the fact that I wrote a book, which was a substantial book, a small book, but it wasn't one of those fluff books to get my name out there. There's a lot of people who do that. I wanted something respectable. So I created something respectable. What do you want to create with your life? You want to be married. You want to have a job. You want to do things in your community. What for? What is the purpose of that? There's a way to make all those things interconnected, and LinkedIn is one of the ways that you can achieve all of that. It's just like your hand. You can't say one of your fingers is more important than the other. They're all interconnected. And what you can do is use LinkedIn in such a way that it can advance all the things that you care about. One of the things I care about is education. I come from another country. Education back in my home country of Haiti and here has been something that was very useful for me. So what do I do? Am I rich? Absolutely not. I'm not wealthy. I'm not super wealthy, but in my work with other people in the community, we put money together and we give 3 scholarships a year. As of this year, we've done 9. So what kind of difference do you want to make? Whether or not you care about scholarships is besides the point. But if you know something a little bit more personal about me, then that stands out in your mind versus the other person who might also be talking to you about LinkedIn, who might also be talking to you about career, who might also be talking to you about technology, but now a little bit of a different positioning makes you memorable. So you want to make sure, it doesn't mean that you have to put your whole life out there. People don't deserve that, and you don't have to feel like you're doing that. However, you need to give people enough bits and pieces about your life. That way they realize you are a real person.
I agree so much, Kareen. That is a wonderful advice that you're giving. And again, the personal stories that you're saying or the examples definitely help us as listeners to identify different ways that we can also engage on LinkedIn using all of the things that you're saying, the 5 fingers, the putting your mask on before somebody else's mask, all of those things are really great hints. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, I'm sure, Christine, at some point, you have told some of your clients, when you reach out to this person, please don't ask them for a job. Right?
Yes, yes.
And in college, the career counselors tell the people the same thing. Please, these alumni are giving you their time. They're giving you their free time. Please don't ask the alumni for a job. So when you only post about work-related things on LinkedIn, it's the equivalent of only asking for a job. You only become the person who is looking either for a client, because I have my own business, so I look for clients, but you become the equivalent of someone who's only looking to get a client, get a client, get a client. You become too thirsty, and you become the person that always is looking for a job, and they never see any difference between you and someone else. So, excuse me, if you're able to take a step back, just relax, enjoy the platform, enjoy the process, it's going to feel a lot less like work, a lot less like something you have to do, and therefore you're not going to avoid doing it. Imagine, you know, Christina and I, we're not like the closest friends, but we've gotten to know each other pretty well in the last 2.5 years. If she messages me or if I message her, like, I'm not going to run away from her text message. I'm not going to leave her email unread for 5 days and then finally get back to her. I'm not going to dodge a conversation with Christine, correct? Because I've established a certain amount of relationship with her. It's the same thing with LinkedIn. Sometimes we avoid things, not because it's bad, but because we don't have that comfort level, and then we run away from it. So if you think of LinkedIn as your friend, the people that you're interacting with as your friend, as people that you are there to help, then it's a lot easier. So if you want to find out more about me, you can look in the Asbury Park Press, you can look on NBC 10, etc. Various other places where I've either done talks, done workshops, done something, and they covered those events. The other thing I'm going to say about this is when you, I forget the point that I was going to make about that, but we'll come back to that. I'm sure it'll come to me eventually. Okay, let's move on to the next. Oh, sorry about that. For some reason, Christine, I'm not able to see.
Does it let you?
Okay, so the first, that's fine. So the first piece we're going to talk about is how to get more eyeballs. And let's go to the next slide. And sometimes you may be wondering, well, should I write a post or an article? Listen, number one rule, when you start asking yourself, should I do A or should I do B? Do both. You know why? I say do both because the longer you keep contemplating, the longer you're going to give yourself an excuse to not actually get something done. You're going to get stuck in this contemplation phase in your mind. And because you're not able to figure out what the right decision is, you're going to be like, well, I'll wait until tomorrow until I figure it out and then I'll do it. You don't want
that. Is a great point, Kareen. I think that we are kind of in a standstill because we don't know what to do. We don't know how to approach it. Should I do A or B? And we're kind of stuck. And by doing both, you might reach certain people and you might reach certain people the other way. So I think that's a great hint.
Yes, Robin in the comments just said analysis paralysis, correct?
Yes. And I think that hits all of us it's so often, and we're not sure what to do. That's a great tip.
I'll tell you one thing, which was analysis paralysis for me.
Well, obviously the seminars you.
Okay, we had a little bit of a background noise. So for me, here's what analysis paralysis looked like. And I talk about this in my book. For 9 years, one day I came across something that I had written 9 years before where I had said, I would like to have a side hustle. I wasn't going to have my own business. That was not the grand plan. I enjoyed my job in corporate. I loved my work. I think there's a place for corporate as well as non-corporate facilities. And I wanted something that belonged to me, even if it was small, even if all I made was like $100, I just wanted the pride of something that belonged to me. That is all. Guess how long I was in analysis paralysis about that? Because I didn't know which way to start, how much money do I need, what connections do I need to have? I want people to take a guess. Please take a guess in the comments. How long do you think I waited? Or maybe I gave it away already. Nope, not 1 month, Maritza. Up, more than that. More than that, Charlotte. Yes, 9 years. Tatiana and Lisa, you got it right. 9 years to make that decision. 9 years is a lifetime. Even if I made a mistake every single year for the first 9 years, it still would have been better than not doing it at all. Now, and then one day I decided, you know what? My 40th birthday is not going to come and I don't have my own business. That's literally the difference that made me commit to going one way or another. So whether you do posts, whether you do articles, the only thing that matters is that you take the action. Yes, Maritza, trial and error and perseverance. So let's move on to the next screen. There's actually something you may not notice, but if you play around with LinkedIn, if you decide to just play with it as I told you, you will discover certain things about it. And then you will be like, oh, I'm figuring out how this works. And it will be a much more pleasant and fun experience for you. If you find a way to make it fun, then it's going to work. Now, articles are what people see right away when they see your profile, especially if they're on a desktop rather than on a phone. How do you decide whether something should be a post or an article? Because you know an article has the longevity. People are lazy. People don't want to think. Even though LinkedIn is supposed to be a professional media, it's still social media. People don't come for all that other stuff. So if you take something which in an article, just the fact that LinkedIn calls it article automatically makes it sound serious. People don't want things that are so serious and heavy. So they will more quickly look at a post than at an article. But if you happen,
do you have any idea how many characters are in a post versus an article? If you get to a certain amount of characters, then it'll say, hey, your post is too long. You can write an article instead. Do you know what that number happens to be?
I don't know what that number is, but in recent years, they have actually allowed you to post a lot longer. And this morning, actually, I posted something which was pretty lengthy, and it took all of it.
It took it all.
It took it all. So the system that I use, that I like to use sometimes is, and I've tested this out. I've created something as an article. I've created it as a post. Hands down, the post beats them all. Even if the article was more serious, provided more value, so to speak, because everybody wants to provide value. The article posted more value, and yet the post is the thing that got people's attention. Because when people think of a post, their mind tends to think, oh, this is going to be quick and short, and I can absorb it, and then I can keep going to the next post. Because your post is not the only one that people are interested in seeing. So if you allow them to have a quick hit, that in one screenshot, without them having to scroll, they can get what you're talking about. They might see it, they might like it, but at least it will increase the views. So if you find that you have a post that has become very popular, then you can memorialize it by creating an article out of it, provided that you think it's something that's going to give people value over the long term. And that's how I decide when to turn a post into an article. But the more posts you have, the more people are likely to interact with it. And you yourself, how many articles do you read? How often do you read articles? Right, I see somebody shaking their head. They don't read articles at all. People read posts. How often do you interact with articles versus posts? You most likely interact with posts because people want something fresh. They don't care how brilliant the idea was. If it's fresh today, it's better than the same thing. Even if you post literally the same thing 3 months ago, people will prefer to read the post that you write today because it hasn't expired.
When you share an article from a journal or Harvard Business Review or anything like that, usually the link will show with a picture to get people, again, more engaged. But when you comment on it, it's almost, it reads as a post as opposed to an article, even though it's an article. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so therefore you're getting more engagement and more views from that because it's a post as opposed to an article?
Yes, and also because there are already a lot of people looking at that same article or looking at that same post. Consequently, you get swept into that tide of posts that get seen more quickly. And again, you don't have to be a LinkedIn expert to know all of this. You just have to tap into the natural instincts that you have. What are your natural instincts when you get on LinkedIn? It's the same thing that other people are doing. So when you think about what your natural actions are on LinkedIn, then you can leverage that too as you are posting to get the attention of people or to just pass the time. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So a couple things I want you to avoid like the plague. Do not hashtag everything. It's thirsty. It looks as if you're trying to grab every single thing out there, trying to get too much attention. Da, 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 da. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Don't do that. Do not be thirsty. Okay? Don't hashtag everything. Yes, Christine said maximum 3 hashtags. Yes, be choosy about the hashtags. Maybe choose the same 3 hashtags for a week or for a month, but you don't need to jump around with all these different hashtags all the time. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to not tag people all the time. There are some people who do that as a bad habit. Every 5 minutes, everything they post, they tag everybody and their mother into that. It's annoying. And you know what's going to happen when people untag themselves and untag themselves from your post, and enough people do that? That's telling the platform you're an annoying person, and when you start posting stuff, they're going to reduce the visibility of what you're putting there. And what are we trying to do? Get more eyeballs. So there's a time and place where you can definitely tag other people, and you should tag other people. So let's say someone wrote an article that you like, someone wrote a post that you like. When you share the post, the person will not automatically get notified unless you tag them. So if you curate something and you want to present it to your audience and you want to credit the source of where you got it, then you can tag the person and they will more readily see that. That is one good example of tagging and hashtags, as well as tagging people into your posts, which are something which are actually valuable. Okay. But you don't want it to appear as if you're using 50 different hashtags. I have seen people literally using over a dozen hashtags. Yes, you might be able to cover a lot of ground with it, but then when you see a wall of hashtags, what do you think? What comes through your mind? Aren't you judging? So don't do that. There's no reason to do that. And actually, since you have fewer hashtags, if you have only 3, that will enable people to think more deeply about the 3 that you choose to highlight rather than, the dozen that you choose to highlight. Okay.
Same thing goes for tagging. When you tag people in your article, make sure it's relevant, that they're going to be interested. Don't just tag them because they are taggable or they share your post or whatever your personal reason is. You want to make sure it's relevant, that, hey, you should take a look at this article. It's great. Maybe you already read it or whatever it is. Make sure it's relevant to them. Precisely.
Okay, so does everybody have pen and paper? You're about to start writing some stuff. Everyone ready? Okay. And if you don't have pen and paper, maybe bring up your notepad or Microsoft Word, whatever else you want. So I'm going to show you this acronym about how you can vary your posts without coming off as a one-trick pony. And if you only ever talk about professional things directly related to your appearance, you are a one-trick pony. And you don't want to do that. You want to show up in all the wonderful selves that you are. So one thing you want to do is you want to motivate people. And it may not seem that somebody needs motivation because they're always posting great stuff and you're like, oh, this is so inspiring. Well, maybe you inspire someone too. So you want to motivate people with the things that you are posting. You can also entertain. Do you want to be serious all the time, even with this pandemic, even with the upheaval that the country is going through now? No, you do not. You want something to uplift you. You want to have some fun. So post something that makes people genuinely smile. It is okay to be entertaining. You don't have to be serious all the time. Personally, I'm somebody who never knew how to have fun, And I had to deliberately go in search of learning how to be, how to have fun and how to enjoy my time. It's okay. You can entertain people. People will not take you as someone who is less professional because you decide to be a little entertaining from time to time. And the third item is make your move. Do a call to action. If you are in business, it is okay to ask for people feedback. It is okay to ask people to get in touch with you if they need your services. It is okay to invite people to get in touch with you because you're an expert in sales, because you're an expert in event planning, because you're an expert in relationship building. I'm talking to you, Corey, yes. Right, whatever it is that you have expertise on, you'll see sometimes that, not sometimes, but LinkedIn has a feature that allows you to tell people, get in touch with me for blah, blah, blah. If you have some experience and you'd like to serve on a board, you can put that in your profile. So make your pitch. You have needs. Everyone has needs. It is okay, and it is your duty and your right to get your needs met. That's why we are here. You have permission. If you wanted permission, I'm officially giving it to you.
I give it to you too. That is awesome, because sometimes we, just as human beings, we need permission from somebody else to say that we're okay and we're doing it right, or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's very important to be reminded.
Yeah. Yep. So you want to motivate people, you want to entertain them, you want to make your pitch. I don't know why I blinked out on the last E. I'm sorry. That's a little embarrassing. Educate. That's it. Educate. Educate people. So how do you educate people? All of you are educated in some way. You all now have used Zoom. That's more education than a lot of people have. You may not know Zoom as well as Christine. Christine may not know Zoom as well as I do, but guess what? Christina has a whole bunch of people in the county that she's the star. If people in the county need help with Zoom, they're not going to come to me. I don't work for the county. They're going to go to Christine, right? So take the opportunity to share what you have with people, and this is something which is going to be very helpful for you. Teach something that comes easy to you. Teach something that is fun for you, not something that necessarily displays how smart you are. Sometimes we want to show people, oh, look how competent I am. That's fine. But you'll get a lot more mileage out of sharing something that your heart is really into, that you're really engaged with, and that you really love. So let's go on to the next slide.
Sorry, I'm reading. There we go. Okay.
Does anyone know who this lady is? Does anyone know? Okay, put it in the chat if you know her name. Vanessa Williams. Yeah, she's a singer. No, not Tyra Banks, although they do look, they're both stunning people.
I was thinking Tyra too.
No, this is Vanessa Williams. And she had a song, I think was it the 90s? I don't know. Or the 2000s, I don't know. Where it was, you went and saved the best for last. Well, guess who has the best? You have the best. You have the best. And here's what I mean. As you are doing your activities on LinkedIn, the latest activity you do is the thing that is topmost for people. So if you put so much thought into creating an article or creating a post, and then you reply to a whole bunch of people after that, what you posted gets hidden, right? So that was my guarantee to you, right? When you decided to sign up here, the way to guarantee that, yes, for Charlotte, former Miss USA, the way to guarantee that somebody will always see what your post is do all your engagement first, talk to people first, reply to people's messages first, do all of that, and your last post of the day should be something that you post, because people only see the first 4 things. So let's say that you had throughout the day commented on 10 different articles and posts from people that you're connected with. 6 of them, unless somebody goes through the extra trouble to see all your activity, they're not going to see it. How often do you go through the trouble of looking at all the activities? You don't. You only look at what's on the surface. Unless you have a specific purpose that you're following the person, that you want to engage with the person, you do not click on that button. Right?
So true. So true.
So do the heavy lifting for people, and that's why you want to save the best for last. And you want to, and if people decide to, stalk your profile and look at other things that you posted, so be it. But yours is always going to get top billing, right? Above the fold if it were a newspaper. Okay, so now let's go into talk about the second thing that I promised to teach you today, which is how to maximize your time on LinkedIn. How many of you really want to be spending 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours a day on LinkedIn? Some people can.
I do. No, not at all. I participated in a poll that said, how many of your hours a day do you spend on LinkedIn? I'm like, I don't want to. So I don't want to be the 5-minute person, but I totally don't want to be the 3, 4, 5 hour person. I want to be somewhere in the middle, maybe a couple times a day, but just little tiny bits of chunks, not hours, like you said, where the time clock just goes by and goes by. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So the next slide is, how do you maximize your time? I have something that I call the Sweetspot Method. And if you have been to my other workshops for Christine in the last 2.5 years, you have heard me talk about this. What is a Sweetspot Method? When you're trying to learn something new, when you're trying to master a new skill, you need to have skin in the game. Do not walk away intimidated only because you've been doing something for 15 minutes and you can't figure it out. If you only spend 15 minutes or an hour, you're saying to your mind, I'm intimidated, I can't do it, and you're not going to feel good about the time that you spent. So you need to spend 2 hours. Does it have to be 2 hours all in one chunk? No, it doesn't. You probably have other things to do during the day that you need to catch up on. But you can use something like this, a timer, a pretty timer. Yes, I know you have a timer on your phone. Yes, I know you can go online and find an online timer. I'm telling you, go spend the $10, buy a pretty timer. I guess maybe that's more for women than men, I don't know. Buy a timer that you will actually enjoy using, because if you enjoy using something, chances are you'll do it more. And then set it for 45-minute increments, and you can have 15 minutes of every hour to do other things that you need to do. Now, if you are able to concentrate for a solid 2 hours, or an aggregate of a minimum of 2 hours, that's enough skin in the game so that all the chatter in your head will cease. Whenever you try to do something for the first time, or anytime you sit down, even if it's not for the first time that you're doing it, you're not able to concentrate right away. Your mind is on something that you've done before or that you're about to do later. So you need to actually give yourself sufficient time to get all that external chatter out, or to externalize that chatter, get that chatter out of your mind, so you can concentrate on what you're doing so that you can get a really good solid hour. So maybe if you give yourself 2 hours, maybe half an hour is spent trying to concentrate, trying to not respond to emails or messages or phone calls, and you're simply making sure that you have 60 to 90 solid minutes of that 2 hour chunk that's going to go into your time on LinkedIn. At most, I would say spend 4 hours, because if you force yourself to do 4 hours each and every single day, you might be able to sustain that for a while, but after that, you may not be able to sustain it. You will start avoiding it. So again, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You want to sustain your ability to do this long term. So maximum of 4 hours, and then you're out. And again, it doesn't have to be all in one shot. You can break it up 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, or 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. That way, in case people get back to you, you're able to get back to them within the same day. That's a strategy that you can use, but that's what I would recommend.
I think that's a great recommendation. As I had commented to Charlotte, when you're in job search, you're spending a little bit more time on LinkedIn because you have the time. So you should be researching companies, applying to jobs, reading articles, and staying abreast of whatever industry you're in on what the new trends are and how things are going, and then taking that break. To combine it with our other guest speaker from previous times, maybe you're walking up and down the stairs 3 times in between the hour and a half that you are on LinkedIn. Hour and a half, walk up and down the stairs, sit down again and do some more LinkedIn work or whatever it happens to be, but give yourself some mental stimulus, some of that oxygen-inducing pleasure, so that you can go back and really concentrate. That is a wonderful tip.
Cool beans. All right, so on the next slide, I talk about tracking your engagements. And again, people sometimes they get caught up in metrics, sometimes vanity metrics, and you don't need to worry about all of that. But it's good to know how many people have viewed your profiles lately, how many people have looked at the posts that you made. Are things resonating with people in some way? And that can give you a little bit of encouragement to come back, because if you see that there's progress, it's a little pat on the back, it makes you feel good, and this is something that you can actually use to motivate yourself. So that's why I say don't obsess over it. If you never used LinkedIn before, if you're on LinkedIn once a week, that's fine. It's not going to skyrocket all of a sudden, and that's completely fine. So do it, but do not obsess over it. And as you can see here from my profile, at one time I had premium, and guess what? It's telling me, hey, Kareen, you used to have premium. Why don't you reactivate it? Now, I'm already on the LinkedIn platform. You would think that if I want their services, I would go look for it. But guess what? They're pitching me. So if LinkedIn is explicitly saying, hey, Kareen, glad you're here. By the way, do you know how else we can help you? They are making it known. They are going out of their way to make their move, to make their pitch. So you are also allowed. And it is not a bad thing for you to say, here's how else I can help you, which is precisely what LinkedIn is doing here. So the next thing I want to talk about is the frequency on the next slide. Frequency is, well, how often should you be on LinkedIn? Do you need to be here 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week? It doesn't matter. Pick whatever level of commitment that you think you can do long term. If it's only once a week, that's fine. Start with once a week. Don't beat yourself up about it. If occasionally you can do twice a week, do that. But at least make the commitment that at least once a week, every week, at the same time of day, every week, that people are going to catch you on LinkedIn. There are times of there are days during the week, as well as times during the day, that people are more likely to engage. But regardless of what those times are, if certain people are used to catching your posts and your articles at that time, those same people will still be around. So again, you don't need to obsess over, oh, what is the right time? Again, all those questions, what are they stopping you from doing? They're stopping you from taking action.
Absolutely. And trying a couple different ways and different days is going to let you figure out where you're getting the best bang for your buck. Hopefully it's $0, but your time. And I'm part of a LinkedIn group that just announced that I was kind of surprised. Saturdays and Sundays, the weekends, have the highest engagement for posts. Mm-hmm. The people you're trying to reach, the hiring managers, the recruiters, Saturdays and Sundays is when you want to be able to post. But if you can't because you have other commitments, family, job, whatever, you know, try it Monday through Friday and see what works best for you. Absolutely.
So that's another reason why you don't want to be just cranking out professional or business posts on LinkedIn, because these people, it's their downtime too. They spent 5 days dealing with work stuff. They don't want to have to come here and be full of it again. They want something a little bit different. So give them something a little bit different. And as you experiment, the way Christine said, then you'll figure out, okay, what days are best, what days work best for me, or what days work best for my audience. Okay, so the next thing is to use numbers, use percentages, use dollar signs.
You mean just like in your resume? Just like in your interview, huh? What?
Yeah, yeah.
Again? I don't think they've heard this before.
I know Christine drills this into your head, but it's really important. If you've created something good, do you remember the fact that I told you it was 9 years before I decided to start my own business? You remember that? That's a number. You may not remember the name of my book, but that is a piece of information you don't remember, because numbers are far more memorable than all the other words that you might say.
You're giving me goosebumps. Oh my goodness. That is so true.
Yeah, so that's how it works, folks. Just think about that. When people cite a statistic, it's something which says to you, oh, this must be important. When you read an article or you see something on TV and they cite a statistic, all of a sudden your ears perk up. It's like, oh, this must be important. So you want to do the same thing too. You want to make sure you use numbers because it has that same effect on people. So some of it is not necessarily something that's intuitive, but when you start thinking about how you yourself act, pretend that you're somebody who's in the room, pretend there's somebody in the room with you, watching you as you go through LinkedIn, and observe what you do. That's what other people are doing as well. So if you can be mindful of that, then that will help you in your strategy for LinkedIn. So let's actually go forward. I think we went back. Yeah, so use numbers. And the next one is to have open-ended conversations. There's a lot of conversations happening these days, right? Not just about coronavirus, but about men, women, ethnicities, etc. You want to have open-ended conversations. You don't have to agree with everyone. Just because somebody's posting something doesn't mean you have to agree with it. And it
having those open-ended conversations and giving your viewpoint and listening to others' viewpoint also shows a potential hiring manager your thought process. So you're having an engagement conversation, but at the same time showing your subject matter expertise and being able to back up your viewpoint.
Yep. One of the best bosses I ever had, and it's a job that I describe in the book as a trifecta. I love the work, I love my coworkers, and I loved my boss. And I am still friends with him to this day. Whenever we came into, when I went into his office, because we had something that was escalated to him, to me, or you know, the senior folks on the team, we went into his office, we huddled around his computer, and we're looking at these issues and trying to figure out, well, what the heck is wrong with this? Like, how did this go wrong? And we're trying and testing things. I learned more from observing him talking out loud about the process of the problem than if he had just said, oh, you just need to click this, then click that, then click that, and then you're done. Earlier in this conversation, before we officially started this presentation, we were talking about the glitches that people were experiencing before they got into the presentation today. Someone put in the chat that she was having an issue because Zoom required her to do the update before she could come into this call, right? So just by the fact of listening to me, to Christine, and to that other lady, I think it was Robin potentially who said that, because we had that conversation, you learned a little bit more about LinkedIn, or rather about Zoom, rather than if I had sent you a help desk article, a support article. So the process of listening is very instructive. Some people say you should not talk about certain things on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on social media because people may misinterpret what you say. However, if you are respectful in your approach to people, it can work. Has any of you heard of Shakespeare? Anyone?
I have.
Okay. So were you around when Shakespeare wrote his plays?
No.
Did you hear
I don't think so. I don't think anyone on this call, I hope not.
So how did you determine what he might have meant with what he said? If it's a little bit obscure, it's because so many people talk about it and they filter it through their various lenses, then people are able to come to a certain agreement, or they come to a consensus, or they can say, most people have a general idea that this is how this works. So as a result of that conversation, through the years, through the ages, through the centuries, people are able to get a certain feel for certain plays that he wrote. The same thing for conversations that you have on social media, professional social media or personal social media. If you keep the conversation open-ended, Christine may say, I don't agree with that. And then, or I may say, Christine, I think you're saying X, Y, Z. And she says, no, that's not what I mean. And she explains, she clarifies. Then I can come back and I can say, oh, now I get it. Now I see what you meant. This is what I mean by the power of open-ended conversations. It allows you to work through stuff. It allows you to do problem solving. It's the way to learn. If you take that same approach when you're reading a book, let's say you're reading a textbook about software, if you're not having that open-ended conversation with yourself and with other people, then you're going to have to memorize the whole thing. You're not going to get a natural understanding, and you're not going to get mastery of that thing because you're just simply trying to absorb information without being able to dissect it. And as Christine said, to be able to show someone the thought leadership that you have about it. So it's really important to have that. So
that is so important, Kareen. I have seen huge examples, many examples of engagement where people are commenting on articles or giving their 2 cents, and people will come back and say, hey, I don't understand. You mean this? No, I didn't mean that. I meant blah, blah, blah. And oh, now I get it. I've seen that happen so many times. It's very hard in an email or text or social media language to maybe get across your viewpoint and the emotion, but having somebody engage with you and ask for more clarification helps them to better understand where you're coming from and your point of view, and you can have that conversation keep going. So
yep.
Definitely.
And it's totally okay if you have different emotions about things than other people have, because at the end of the day, people are allowed to have their feelings, they're allowed to have their thoughts, just like you have your own experience, just like you choose the car you choose to drive. I recently said to someone, just because there are bad drivers out there does not mean I don't have the right to drive. I still have the right to drive. You still have the right to your opinion, okay? So, so one of the last things I want to say to you is teaspoons, not shovels. How do you like it when somebody just barrages you with information? Even if it's information you want, there comes a time when you're like, you know what, I've had enough. I've had enough. That's why we don't write articles too often. Even if it's short, it's a short article, it's better to spoon feed someone information instead of taking a shovel. You'd never feed a baby with a shovel. People only have the capacity for small bits of information from you and Christine and Corey and Yvonne and Maritza and Mark. They want to be able to stop at other people's profiles and collect little bits and pieces. So when they come to you and you just glom all this information on them, they're going to come away with a stomachache. So you want to make sure you give somebody a taste of what you have to offer. You want to do a little, not a teaser, not something which is not useful, but you want to show people with the little teaspoons that you're feeding them that you have a lot more to offer. And yes, there is a time for the shovel. Most often the shovel is not needed or wanted for that matter. You may think it's wanted, you may think they need it, but that's what you think people need. What people need, they're allowed to want what they think they need. That's one thing I really had to learn as a consultant, which is why I became a better coach, because when I'm coaching people, I don't try to convince them of what I think they need to know. I respect what they think they need. Once we're done with that, then we can move on to the next step. But if I try to tell them, but you have to have all of this, some people are grateful for it, but more often than not, people are not willing to do that, because then it appears as if you're trying to force them into doing more than they're capable of handling at the moment. So you want to make sure you just do that. And guess what? That also works for meetings. When you are in a meeting, do you like the people who hog the meeting all the time? That always has an answer for every single question that somebody asks in the meeting? No, those people are annoying. That's why people don't like meetings, because you have these people who sit there and they dominate the meeting and nobody else ever has a chance to say anything. So you want to make sure you're not suffocating people with information. So you want to make sure you're just giving them bits and pieces. When you're in a meeting, particularly the higher up you go in the food chain, if you are in an executive meeting, you don't have somebody who's talking all the time. No, you say what you need to say. You're very concise. If somebody wants more information, you give them a little bit more information. If they want yet more information, they say, great, I'll be happy to follow up with you after the meeting. Let's set a time to talk about it, but let's table the discussion right now and let's move on to the next topic. Rob, what did Robin say? If you're taking the entire time,
you can't
listen.
If you're talking the entire time, you can't listen.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Listening is a sign of respect. People want to be heard so much. And many times when people listen to them, it's only for the purpose of preparing the next response that they're going to say. You don't have to prepare for the next thing that people are going to say. Christine and I, we're going back and forth. My impression of what we're going to do today is that I was going to just talk and none of you were going to say anything. But guess what? We're having a conversation. I can't predict if Mark is going to say something in the chat or Maritza is going to say something in the chat or who's going to pipe up and say something. But I just roll with it. It's the same thing. Allow room for other people to be heard, because they're actually more concerned about what they're saying than about what you're saying, even if what you're saying might be more important. So make sure you're aware of these things. And last thing I want to say, or second to the last thing I want to say, is to curate. As Christine has said, if you want to share useful articles, it's great. And don't think that it's taking attention away from you if you happen to redirect someone to a place that talks more about the issue. So particularly for people who are business owners, we have this tendency sometimes, that every time you put up a link, it's the link to your own website. It's a link to your own article. Why do you have to be the end all be all? Are you the only person who knows anything? So if you become somebody who's a curator, think of it like a museum. A museum has a curator, right? You're curating information. You're creating good information. When you're telling people, listen, I don't have all the answers. I don't have to have all the answers. And actually, if I don't try to have all the answers, it's better for me. When you curate things for people, then they can come to you as the source. So just like the hand, right? So if I have all these things attached to me, you're going to keep coming back to the source, which is here, because you know all these various pieces of information come through me. So I can be the filter for you. You can be the filter for people. Oh, Darcy. Okay. Darcy, you called me Karen. I know that was a typo, but I have a funny story to say about that. And it dovetails with my last slide. So let's put up the last slide. KareenKircher.com. My husband has this saying that when he heard people calling me Karen, he said, "Not Karen, that's sad. Kareen, if you smile, you'll pronounce it correctly." But he started to say Karen with a smile. And I was going to one client a few years ago where I would go in every other week. So I wasn't there all the time. And they have hundreds and hundreds of people in the building. So the secretary doesn't remember everybody's name. And especially me, I'm a consultant. I'm not in the building every day. So I would go in, and the first few times she forgot my name. And then she's like, Karen with a smile, right? I'm like, yep, you got it. So it is something memorable. It is absolutely okay to do something to make yourself memorable. So if you curate things for people, if you help people find more information, if you become a resource for people, this is something which will make you more valuable without trying. And that will get more people coming to you without you really trying too hard and being annoying in people's faces. I would love to help you some more. You can go to my website. You can find me very easily on LinkedIn. You can just Google my name and find me. I'm very easy to find. So you can go to KareenKircher.com to the session page, and then you can schedule a free complimentary 15-minute talk with me, either about your business or your career. That's why I wrote the book, Waking Up from Your Parents' American Dream. People were asking me for a lot of advice on how to improve their career based on what they had seen me do. And since I became a business owner, how to help people. So that's what I do. I have, I have a business where I help people with getting ahead in their career and getting ahead in their business to either launch, especially if they've been sitting on their rear end for a long time about it, to get in and get into action. But do things just as I talked about here with LinkedIn. You can be intentional about those things, and you can achieve those things without it taking over your entire life. It does not have to suck up all your oxygen. So I hope you found this useful, and we can now turn over for more questions and comments and interactions.
What is the name of your book once again? Can you hold that up? Sorry, I don't have it handy. Waking Up from Your Parents' American Dream.
Yes. And the tagline is,
can't read it.
The
Sorry.
Essential Guide to Success. Wait.
Got it. Okay. The Essential Guide to Success on Your Own Terms.
Yes.
I have read it cover to cover. I highly recommend it. It is on my bookshelf in the other room. Sorry, guys, I don't have it with me. But definitely recommend it. And where can they get that book, Kareen?
They can also get that book from KareenKircher.com.
Okay, very good, very good. So that is another way. Kareen.
Oh, Beverly, hi.
A couple years ago, and she's wonderful. She has so much input and thought process and just helpful hints that are not facts. There's stories behind it, and I think that you're going to remember a lot more of LinkedIn use, and just use in your life on all social media or just conversations, Zoom conversations, from what she has said to you as well. So
yes, so if you go, awesome. If you go to that page, you'll see or KareenKircher.com/store. You'll see it there, and you'll be able to get either, you can order the paperback or you can get the ebook version. And again, both are quick reads, only 108 pages in there.
Okay. And Maritza, I'm sorry, the name of the book again, screen froze for a bit.
Oh.
Waking Up from Your Parents' American Dream.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Maritza, great.
Very good, very good. And the questions that I sent you beforehand, did we address those questions, Kareen? Not really sure. I think we did.
See. I'm going to look them up again. I believe I did.
I think you did too.
But if anyone has any questions that I did not answer, now is the time.
I know some people had other webinars. Zoom is very busy.
Oh, very, very, very.
There's all kinds of things. So I do appreciate you spending your time here with us today. And as I said before, the session is recorded. It will be posted within 48 hours, hopefully sooner. And I will send you a link to it. You can download the slides as well as the session recording and the chat conversation. So if you miss anything, feel free to get it from that point. And definitely share it. Use LinkedIn, share it, and engage, post, comment, share it, tag us. That would be a great way for you to get started being active on those platforms to be that SMA.
Thank you. You're welcome, Geneva. You're welcome, Mark.
All
Thanks
right.
for those comments.
Thank you so much, everyone. And
All right.
remember,
So,
go ahead, Kareen.
let's see. I just wanted to look into the chat to see what else that we have here. Mark.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, Nancy, yes. Kareen and Christine. That rhymes. That's funny. Yes. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I don't miss any questions. Lisa had said active listening is the key. Yes, absolutely. And Robin about listening.
You are all light years ahead of any other job seeker because you are here today and you are keeping up with all the changes in job search and the changes in the industry. So keep that in mind instead of, being down on yourself. This is huge. So definitely
Absolutely.
taking a step forward, always be learning.
Yes, indeed. Wonderful to see you. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks. Take care, everyone.